Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and today we are going back to Disneyland for the updated POV ride-through of Peter Pan's flight over in Fantasyland. With me to explore all of the additions and positive plussing in the Disney experience is Kate, the Disney sister. Kate, yo!
Hey, I love that we're plussing. We're being positive. I love it.
Yeah, well, you think it's worse? I think it's better.
No, it is better,
I think
for
it gets
sure.
better.
No, I just love the idea
plus.
of just plussing. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, plussing is nice. It makes, people don't like change, but I feel like how can you be upset with plussing?
No, they did a nice job with these ones. But before we talk about the plussing, we have to go back a little bit because I actually found something, Kirk, that I didn't have for our last episode that we have to talk about because it's really cool.
It would not be an episode of Distory if we didn't go backwards to go forwards.
Right, exactly that. So you remember when we were in the queue and we saw that Captain Hook's hook that's holding the lantern?
Yes.
Okay. And I was like, everybody says it's from the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship, but I haven't been able to find it. I found it. I found
Is it holding a tuna boat?
It's close. That would be cool.
Okay.
So this is from the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship because I found the actual hook was on the marquee sign for the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship restaurant.
No way.
Yeah. So
that's a full circle moment.
Yeah. So it wasn't on the ship itself. It was on the sign out front. And that's why I couldn't find it.
No wonder why you had trouble finding it. You had to go to the signage, not the pirates.
So I was so excited to find this photo in particular because you can see it really clearly. And I'll go back to the other one just so you can see what it looked like too. It's clearly been, painted and whatnot and restored.
Yeah.
But
there's a really good
one.
I found this Daveland one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great photo. So there you have it. So there is the hook where its original home was and now where it is now. And I just love it because I've been looking for this for years and I'm like, yay, I finally found the proof of that did exist on this pirate ship. It's not just a rumor.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wonder how many people actually know that that was utilized on the restaurant.
Yeah. It's if you know Disney history, it's been around for a while as a rumor that it has been, but I don't know how many people have actually seen the side-by-side photo. So the other thing I found for you, Kirk, is a photo of the operators panel up close,
thank goodness. I thought it was going to be a picture of me somewhere. I was like, don't show that, dude. Send that to me privately.
No, the operators panel with actually there's even a monitor screen in there as well. So I thought that was kind of fun for you to see the buttons.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's also really creepy. That's like Five Nights at Freddy's meets Peter Pan. Also, why are there so many bibs and bobs and knobs on that control panel? Unless those are operating LEDs that light up, which is typical. So it's strange. There's so many buttons. The thing just goes forward and stops. What else do you need?
I don't know. I thought maybe lights to indicate, different areas or something, but I don't know for sure because it's not that great of a picture. It's just, it is a photo, but it's not that great of a
I guarantee it's the same exact control panel. Next time I'm in Disneyland, I'm taking a photo of that sucker.
Then also I have this artwork for New Fantasyland, which features Peter Pan there on the right-hand side. I just wanted to show this. This is Fantasyland, 35 Years of Magic by Melanie Taylor Kent from 1990.
I'm laughing because I'm seeing all the characters of Fantasyland riding carousel horses, but my favorite is Mr. Toad, who is flying with his little leggies willy-nilly in the air. He's not even on the horse, which makes perfect sense for him.
Yes. Just like in his
But
his
head is wild. I like that. I like that print. It's fun.
Anyway, that's all I have for going backwards. Let's go forwards because we got a lot to talk about today. So where we left off last time was we were at the load area and we were about to get in our pirate galleon and go for a flight over the London cityscape that's in the load area and then into the nursery. So that is where we're going to head now. So I have this wonderful track layout from Park Lore that we're going to use. So shout out to them for creating this one because this is actually really well constructed. So you can see us here. We're in the load area and we're going to go into the Darling Nursery. We're going to see Nana and whatnot. And so we're just going to tackle the nursery first. We're going to do the scene by scene like we always do here on Distory. And it's going to be highly detailed. We got a lot to talk about. So in each scene, I do have this 1981 work copy for proposed new Fantasyland from Walt Disney Imagineering, or it was WED at the time. The things that are listed here, the description that is here, isn't exactly what we ended up getting in 1983, because you remember this is 2 years previous, so they were still developing this attraction. But I thought that these were quite fascinating to read, to give it kind of set the scene for each scene, to give us an idea of what they were thinking of creating, even if it turned out a little bit differently. So this one for the nursery, it says the story or narration says the pirate ships enter the nursery through an open window. Toys and building blocks are strewn about the hardwood floor of the room. On the wall are portraits of the Darling family and their St. Bernard Nana. Sitting in a rocking chair in the center of the room is Wendy reading to her brothers of the adventures of Peter Pan. John and Michael reenact the story as she reads by engaging in a duel with make-believe swords. Suddenly, all three stop and stare in amazement as Peter Pan appears, balancing on the window ledge. Now, if you've been on this attraction, right, Kirk, like you're like, wait a minute, like a lot of that didn't happen.
Nope.
No. The other things I want to point out in here before we move on, it says that set description is the set depicts an English nursery. There are toys and blocks strewn about the room with portraits of Ma and Pa hung on the front wall. The real wall is scenically painted to give the illusion of depth. Peter Pan leads the vehicles out the open bedroom window, and then the show functions, which is basically telling you what the scene does within the context of the entire show. It says this scene is the formal starting point of the Peter Pan story. They also talk about some audio animatronic figures, Wendy sitting in the chair, John standing by the rocking chair, Michael, and then there's like a static figure of Peter Pan. And the audio is just the theme music, and then they have theatrical lighting here. The dark rides often are designed with an incandescently lit scene at the beginning and the end of the attraction to aid with the transition from daylight to blacklight. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out here is they do have something in the bottom right that says vehicle action, and it says vehicles pass through a light trap and continue to move smoothly out the open window. Kirk, I don't know if you saw this, but I thought this was interesting. I was like, what the heck is a light trap? What would you think a light trap is, from your knowledge?
I would say that it traps light.
Yeah, well, pretty much. So a light trap, often referred to as a light lock or simply a blackout measure, is a specialized architectural or design feature used to prevent outside light from entering a show building, or to prevent light from one scene from bleeding into an adjacently differently themed scene. So it's basically to trap light, right? To block it from going to where you don't want it to go. They ensure that the interior of the ride remains in near total darkness to maximize the impact of special effects like blacklight or projections. They're often constructed using opaque doors, winding corridors, or baffles that block light paths, or dark-colored matte materials that absorb light. Which I think was really interesting, is that they were going to have a light trap. There's obviously no light trap as you transition into this scene. There's nothing into the nursery. Like, you can see straight into the nursery from the queue, right? So
Right.
The only light trap we get are those doors to the nursery window that then open up into the garden later.
Okay.
So I don't know if they were planning on having a light trap before this, perhaps like the 1955 version, and then they just decided not to put one there. They just have it inside instead. But they do have the corner, I guess. So that's also something that can consider be a light trap from the outside. But
Okay.
anyway, I was just kind of thinking through that, if they perhaps changed that development. That's all I have for the 1981 work copy. Let's go into the 1983 version, which we actually got. And it's pretty much what we have now. We'll talk about the changes that they made in a little bit later. But we fly into the nursery through these French doors. And shout out to Daveland for a lot of the photos that we're going to see that are featured in this episode, because they did have a really good archive. But we're going to see, as we fly in through the nursery here, there is a door on the left-hand side. And then there's some portraits of the Darling children that are hanging on the wall on the left. So those three people are the Darling children. And then the first thing we see as we fly in is actually Wendy's bed. On the right-hand side, there's a mirror over a dresser. We see a hand mirror, a brush, and a comb sitting on kind of like a lace covering for the dresser. There's I think it's like a little stuffed dog, Kirk, that's on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's definitely a stuffed little pooch.
Okay, I think it's like a poodle or something. Then there's a floral parlor oil lamp. I tried to look up this kind of lamp, Kirk, and that's the closest I could get. Was it something that I couldn't find the exact model? I looked for a while, but it is an oil lamp that's sitting next to her bed there.
Very safe, by the way, kids. Just put your oil lamp next to your bed.
Yes.
Which also has a canopy.
But yeah, the bed is a canopy bed.
That's, that's kind of like a throwback, the canopy, to when England used to have those thatched roofs, and it was like sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, and the canopy was used to like literally catch bugs that would fall from the thatch.
Yeah, bugs and spiders and stuff. Yeah.
But now it's just for fancy people.
It is.
Because they clearly don't have a thatched roof here.
I did have a canopy bed when I was growing up, though. I liked my canopy bed.
Like I said, for fancy people.
It seems right. The wallpaper is also white with like blue and purple stripes instead of like maroon like Walt Disney World. So they decided to lighten the nursery up significantly from the Walt Disney World version from 1971. Around her bed, there's also, if you look on the far wall, there is portraits of Ma and Pa, which is a carryover from 1955. They had similar portraits in there. And they also have like a dresser that I think has a sewing box on it. Says that, the story of Peter Pan, and she tries to, she has to like sew his shadow back onto him. It was originally closed, but you see this one currently, at some point when they did the updates, they opened the sewing box and have items inside so you can actually see it, which I think is really neat. And
that's cool.
They added another secondary little box next to it, and there's a vase of flowers as well. The other thing we see next to her bed is Nana. And this is actually one of my favorite details of this scene because this Nana is the same one that we saw in 1955. They actually repurposed the same Nana. So you can see a clear shot of Nana here. This is what she looked like in 1955, hanging out in the corner next to the dresser, if you remember from our previous episode. So they probably cleaned her up a little bit.
She looks super spooked by the fact that we're flying.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought of her reacting to us that way, Yeah,
we're clearly in a giant boat flying by. I'd be a little creeped out too.
So that's something that's from the 1955 attraction. And then we have on the floor, there's a whole bunch of blocks. Kirk, do you want to chat about the blocks for a minute?
I do. So this wouldn't be an episode of Distory without taking some small, minute prop or detail and expanding upon it for way too long.
That's true.
So welcome to that part of.
Excellent. I'm ready.
So we're going to talk about the history of alphabet blocks. The oldest that I could find was actually in the 1400s.
Huh.
And it was very, very small written. This was in England. And it's talking about how you could use formal letters and rows, and children would be playing to be able to then learn principal grammar rules imprinted on them. So like you're actually seeing an illustration here, but they don't act. This is just like a proposal. They never actually get made. The person that is, and that was Sir Hugh Platt, who wrote about potentially having alphabet blocks. But also this gentleman had designed many wonderful contraptions like the portable pump, which I don't think is either portable or really pumping anything.
What is that?
It's a portable pump, Kate. You mean you don't walk around with a giant open barrel vat that you jam a stick into and it shoots water out?
Yeah, I just put it on my bag.
No, the truth is it was a siphon. So if you look at it, it makes a lot more sense when you realize that it was using siphon technology to basically be able to remove liquid from a large vessel and move it into a smaller vessel. So that was his portable pump. Is actually you could take that piece out of the giant vat and utilize that. So, but it does look ludicrous. I'll give you that.
I thought it was like a fancy hot tub.
Yeah, it was not a time machine though, sadly. All right, the next gentleman we have to talk about is in 1693 with John Locke. So here's John Locke right here in his essay called Some Thoughts Concerning Education. Specifically, he wrote this for some friends, Maria and R.L. Edgewood, who was kind of struggling with coming up with how to educate their children. So I actually pulled a passage from this that describes what you could do and kind of gamify learning versus just reading directly from text. So it says, I doubt not, but some way like this might be taken from other children. And when their tempers are found, some thoughts be instilled into them that might set them upon desiring of learning themselves and make them seek it as another sort of play or recreation. So he's setting up the fact that it'd be better to have some sort of tool or toy that a kid could utilize themselves to be able to educate themselves. It says, but then, as I said before, it must never be imposed as a task, nor made a trouble for them. There may be dice and playthings with the letters on them to teach children the alphabet by playing, and 20 other ways may be found suitable to their particular tempers to make this kind of learning a sport to them. So this is the first time really in text that we ever are seeing like dice, like some sort of cube structure to have the letters on them. Later on, this is in 1858, and this is the early 1800s, we get Friedrich Froebel's kindergarten concept, which he promoted the use of using like blocks and toys. So this is again like kind of building off that and doing physical, tangible things to teach numbers, and then eventually lettering systems as one of the first folks that put letters and numbers on blocks are going to be Milton Bradley. Now, let's go back to the Disneyland version, and you look on the ground and you notice these are big blocks and they have the letters instilled on them. And on the left-hand side, the blue letters spell out Disney. So it's D, 1 for I, 5 for S, N-E-Y. And then on the other side, in green letters, it spells out Peter Pan.
Yeah.
They have changed these around from time to time, but I couldn't find evidence or photos of those. So I'm just going to say that it is rumored that they have changed them. And the closest thing that most people will be familiar with are the Halcyon alphabet blocks. When you were a kid, you probably had something similar or knew somebody that had something similar. But I'm pretty sure that Disney created these blocks themselves because there was none that looked identical or similar. This is obviously, they're so large in terms of the actual physical space that are on the Disney ones that finding a block set that would give you the visual so you could be able to see it, like those are probably 4.5 to 5 times larger than the Halcyon blocks.
Yeah.
So
I think they're custom made for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I really went in to try to find the individual designs on the sides, like the tree and those things, because you're like, okay, well, obviously, if you put the tree side and then you can spell out TREE with the blocks, but there was none that had the symbology matching the correct letters and with the stylistic. So I just went with what was the most popularized starting in the late 1800s to early 1900s when like Sam Hill started producing them at mass scale. But before this, they were always hand carved. So machining really took a big place, but you can tell that these ones are not machined or hand carved. They're just straight up cubes that are painted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off too.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love the star that is on the front of that one. So it's kind of like the second star to the right. So it's a little nod to the foreshadow.
If there was only 2 stars in that block set, then it would be the second star to the right. That would be fun.
That would be. But if there is, we can't see it though. So
yeah, I mean, I guess you could kind of call this one that's on the first P a star, and then the one on the right, the second star to the right.
That's true.
That would be us reaching.
That would be indeed.
Which we tend to do on here.
We do.
Yeah. So Kate, why don't you continue taking us around the room?
Okay. Well, thanks for that journey through block history. I hadn't known most of that, so that's really interesting.
Well, won't be the first or last time I'm called a blockhead on this show, so I am ready for it.
So let's keep moving. We're going to go to the bookshelf, which is to just past the door that is in this. So we have Wendy's bed. We have Nana with the blocks. Right behind Nana is a door. And right at the door is the pictures of Ma and Pa. To the left is a sconce, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But then we get to this bookshelf. I looked forever for a photo that was close enough of the spines to be able to read these books, and I have come out short. So next time I go to Disneyland, I'm going to see if I can't get a better shot of that. But there is a model sailboat that is on the top of this bookshelf. Now, I know Kirk has a few things about sailboats, but before we talk about his, I just want to mention that there has been some sailboats in Disney's history as well. If you remember Tomorrowland history, you'll remember this flight circle that used to be in Tomorrowland. It's where they would test these like model airplanes, and you would see them. They wouldn't fly independently. They'd usually be like attached to like a string that they would fly around. Flight circle was 200 feet in circumference, and it opened in Tomorrowland in August of 1955. And around the 4 points of the compass they marked in its center, they had model airplanes, cars, and even boats were demonstrated in this space. This idea of having model clubs in Disneyland originated with Walt himself because he was an avid, railroad and miniatures hobbyist. And he attended a Los Angeles hobby show and became intrigued by the working models. So he's like, let's have this in the park. And he said, let's encourage local model clubs to meet in Disneyland and then test their items there. Yeah. So like kids and whatnot could come in, or even like grown adults that loved models because, everybody's a kid to Walt Disney. One of the best things, though, Kirk, is that they didn't just test them in this flight circle. They also tested the model boats in the lagoon of Sleeping Beauty Castle. So I have this wonderful video, and it has Walt Disney's narration over it, basically saying that they can test out their boats here in Disneyland. And there's video of all them, and not only the boats in the lagoon, but the people sitting on the rocks next to the water testing out their model remote controlled boats in the lagoon.
Oh, that's cool.
In the moat. Isn't that fun?
You know what's funny is when I was a kid, I used to love places that had the coin operated either boats or trucks, and they would have typically a sailing wheel, or sometimes it would be a pedal, like a gas pedal, and a steering wheel. I love that. Now that's like old school theme park or amusement park, way to monetize. And it was always fun, because you try to take the boat and put them through the rocks. There'd be a little tunnel.
Well, they had that in the Disneyland Hotel, had some boats like that. And, they used to have that in Disney World, too. The boats by in Adventureland there near the Jungle Cruise.
Right by the Jungle Cruise.
Mm-hmm. But sadly, those are all gone now. So you can't do that anymore, kids.
There goes the fun.
Everything changes.
No. It's Busch Gardens had them up until 2025. They literally just removed them, so you could go over there, and it was all electronic now with digital cards, but you could still drive a car or drive a boat as a kid, which I liked. I know Dorney Park used to have them too when I was growing up in New Jersey. That's fun. That's a Pennsylvania park, but yeah.
I love that. What do you got for the boat? Do you have something you want to share about that?
I do. So toy sailboats are going to make you prestigious and high status. You want to know why?
Why?
Because they're not toy sailboats.
No.
They're really called pond yachts.
Oh, give me a pond yacht.
I kid you not. This is a serious thing. In the mid 19th century is the golden age of pond yachting.
Pond yachting. I'm into it. Let's do it.
So stupid. Okay. Granted, I was not able to find the exact style and model of the ones that's in the Darling House. However, I was able to find one that was similar that had, because most of the pond yachts have multiple sails. So this one only has two, and that's the style that you see in the Disneyland version of it. But this one was from 1910. What's crazy is all of this stuff is handcrafted. It has very, very detailed structures, and all of the, I don't know what you call it in boating, where it's all the rigging and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's all just so miniature, but so cool.
Yeah, it's tiny.
I don't know. I find it fascinating. It's kind of reminds me of when people used to put ships in bottles.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. But this one, you could actually sail it around on a pond, and it would be a usable, functional boat. And obviously this one would work with its own energy from wind. So it worked exactly the same as a sailboat, which is cool, because obviously in the 1900s we weren't doing, or 1910 you weren't using remote control.
Right.
for these vessels. They called this free sailing when they actually would physically take these out onto the pond to yacht around.
Yacht around. I love it.
And they were sailed around public parks and lakes, such as the Round Pond in London's Kensington Gardens, or you would find them even in New York City's Central Park at the Conservatory Water, which was another one. And then again, because this is before radio control, they developed a mechanical steering system. One of the most famous one was the Brain Quadrant, which used tension of the sails to automatically adjust the rudder, allowing the boat to sail straight across the pond despite shifting winds. So pretty interesting, technological, advanced, even though it's mechanical. And it's almost like self-correcting in the sense of when the wind shifts, the boat will still go straight. So the whole idea of pond yachting is to go right across the pond. You don't want your boat doing circles because you ain't getting your boat back.
You'd be rowing out to your boat to get it back. Yeah,
correct. In the 1920s and 1930s, companies like Star Yachts in England began mass producing simplified versions of these boats, which is the type that you would have found in the Darling's bedroom. This transition made the toy sailboat much more accessible and a childhood staple rather than just a specific luxury item. The traditional hobby of free sailing faded largely once the introduction of affordable RC cars or remote control for boats and cars. So exactly what Kate had talked about in Disneyland. But I was able to find another version of these two-sail Star Yachts made by Star Yachts, and that is this guy right here. The keel on the bottom almost looks like a shark fin if you were to flip this upside down, which is kind of interesting. But this is obviously a much more simplified version than the one that we see in the Darling House or the ones that I showed you earlier with like all that rigging.
Pond yachting. You guys, you probably need some
pond
wind.
Yachting.
You need a windy day, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, I mean, obviously, if you have no wind, it will do nothing.
So
pond
interesting.
Yachting.
Okay, fun fact about Kate. I know how to sail. I got certified to sail.
Shocking. Miss Canopy Bed knows how to sail. I know I'm going to add in ballet, equestrian. Let me think of something else.
I'm not an equestrian.
Do you do curling? Do you own your own curling set?
Curling? No, I don't curl. And I have ridden a horse, but I don't know how to ride horses. But I do. I am I'm certified for sailing. I learned on the Columbia River in Oregon. Well, so
you definitely, you heard it here first, kids. Kate is certified or certifiable.
It's hard to say which, but I will say the most important thing I learned from sailing, beyond don't get hit by the boom as it swings across the boat, very important, but also stay out of the barge channel if you're on the Columbia River, because that's terrifying because they don't stop, so you just get hit by them if you. So anyway, I think pond yachting's safer.
My mom actually had a very, very small sailboat when she was growing up. And I remember taking it out onto a lake once. And it was I think it was called like a starfish or a sunfish. This is the kind of little boat my mom had.
Oh, fun.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. Those little sunfish, they called them.
That is fun.
And, I remember doing it in the Poconos.
Oh, fancy. Now who's fancy?
The sunfish. The Poconos are, let me translate that for you. Poor people's skiing area. It's not Vermont. It's not New Hampshire. It's Pennsylvania.
Okay, before we go any further, we have to talk about a few things that are going on at Disney Cicerone and Walrus Carp. So, Kirk, what you got going on over there these days?
What you guys are all looking at right now is our theme park planning and travel app, which is called Mode. We just hit a massive milestone. Thanks to everybody in here. We have 4,000 users now on Mode, and it's just growing and growing. That's like great. A weed, which is really cool. Something that is coming up, which you guys will see within a week, is currently we have crowd calendars, but it only shows 7 days in advance. The one thing that is nice, not only do we show attractions with updated wait times, entertainment, dining, and the like. So we are going to be adding 12-month calendars. So this more tab down here will have a 12-month calendar section. So you'll be able to plan more effectively. And for those that plan ahead of time and you get the premium version, while you're picking your days and what parks, you'll actually get the data and information from previous years as well as upcoming events to give you a better idea of which parks to head to.
Oh.
So we have those are getting updated as well as Android. So yeah, you can take a look at all of this on Mode right now, MOWD, on the Apple App Store. And by next week, it should be like a couple days after this episode airs, you'll be able to get it on Android as well.
That's awesome. I love all the planning features you guys added to that. That's so fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, well, what's up with you, Kate? What are we doing?
As a woman entrepreneur and an author, I am celebrating Women's History Month this month. So to honor the legacy of the women Imagineers and animators in Disney's history, you can actually use the code DisneyWomen for $5 off your order in my bookstore at disneycicerone.com. And I just wanted to feature a couple of my books that do have, most of my books have stories about Disney women in them, quite honestly. But the original book that is called A Glimpse of the Magic, Finding Ourselves in the Disney Story, has some stories about Alice Davis in this one. And this is the first book in the Moments of Magic series, which is a nonfiction series that incorporates Disney history and how we experience the Disney parks and Disney history in our own lives. And then in my newest book, So This Is Love, What Disney History Teaches Us About Love, there's quite a few stories about Mary Blair, Alice Davis, Adrienne Teitla, who is married to Bill Teitla. There's a story about her in there as well. So lots and lots of wonderful stories about strong Disney women in these books. And again, you can get it at disneycicerone.com. Use the code all lowercase Disney Women for $5 off your order. And you can get...
That's wonderful.
Yeah, signed copies, audiobooks, bundles, and also ebooks and whatnot as well, and print copies, all from there. So
bring your tissue box, kids, because you're going to need it. There's some great heartwarming stories.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody said that I put a lot of heart into my writing, and I think there is a lot of me in these books, but it's me in a way, hopefully, that you can also see your story in it as well. That's the goal, is always that to tell these stories of all of these animators and Imagineers were real people. You know, they had real lives, and they incorporated their lives into their work and to their art. And that, I think, is why we feel so connected to it as humans. So that's what I like to put into those books, so that you get a greater context and a greater understanding of your love for Disney, just like what we do on Distory here, but just in a different way. So let's keep going. We got a lot to cover here. So
yeah.
The other thing we see leaning up against the bed before we get to Michael's bed is a hobby horse. Now, Kirk, do you have anything about hobby horses you'd like to share?
Oh, buckle up, Kate, because we are hobbying and we're horsing around.
Okay.
Okay, so the hobby horse has been around forever, and the image I'm showing is from like ancient times, right? Like Greeks and Romans. And there's, if you're listening, there is a very small child who has quite the rotund medieval style garb and has a very, very tiny stick with the smallest horse head I think I've ever seen in my entire life. He's very chubby, so he's well fed.
He is, yes.
So the concept of a child riding a stick and pretending it to be a horse dates all the way back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. There's even an anecdote from the Greek biographer Plutarch about King Aglasaurus of Sparta. So around 400 BC, who was caught. So this is the king. The king was caught riding a stick around with his children. When a friend saw him, the king supposedly asked him to not tell anyone until he had children of his own. So the king of Sparta around 400 BC was riding around on a stick pretending it was a horse. And that's like the first account of hobby horses. In the 1600s, here's a child with a hobby horse and wind-up toys, but it also looks like he has a pet goat that's kicking him and a bird on his hand. Again, why?
He's trying to ride away from it, That's how you get away.
I
hop
guess
on your hobby horse.
I've got more amazing hobby horse photos. This is another medieval one. I don't know what he's holding in his hand. It looks like some sort of like stick with like almost like flags or pennants on the end. But the lady to his left is showing a little ankle because of his hobby horsing, I suppose.
Was she tossing at him like an orange? Like, what is that, a ball?
I'd see. Yeah, maybe this is like a game where if a gentleman is singing with curly hair and a perm with no shoes on a hobby horse, you hurl a quaffle at him and then you show your gams. I think that's what that is.
He's probably going to hit away the ball she's throwing at him if I had to guess. But why is she lifting her skirts? I don't know.
I told you, she's interested. That's her way. That's how they flirted back then. Now listen, I have to admit, you'd probably flirt with this guy because he looks fantastic in his blue hobby horse dress with his little shoes sticking out. What? He looks like a conquistador.
It's like a bad Halloween costume.
Yeah. Now, all right, ready? This is actually pretty cool. So the term hoben or haben was used for a small or active horse, aka like a pony. So in the 14th and 15th centuries, they used that term as a hoben or a haben as a pony. But when somebody became obsessive with something, there was an idiom from the 17th to 18th century. The phrase went to ride one's hobby horse, meaning for somebody to talk obsessively about a favorite topic or engaging in a favorite leisure activity. And over time, it gets shortened to the word hobby.
Huh.
So hobby horse or haben, and then translating all the way up until the 1800s, that's where we get the beginning of the term hobby. So things that you get obsessive over that serve no purpose besides enjoyment.
Like this show?
Yes.
You could say we're on our hobby horse right now. Is that the expression?
Yeah. Correct. So from the 18th and 19th century, the simple stick style hobby horse and toy makers began carving intricate patterns and painted wooden heads to the sticks. And sometimes they add wheels to the bottom to make them easier to run around. I don't know, Kate, have you ever...
What?
I might die, Kate. Now, modern times, they have competitions with hobby horses for humans.
No.
Jump over.
Oh, no.
Horses that I go, there's
Like, they're going over, like, gates, like horses do.
There's water on the bottom of this one. This guy seems so happy. Okay, so they have competitions with him now, and I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
This is in England, too.
It's a real thing. Sense. They really do this.
I'm not kidding. This is like those photos were taken yesterday.
Well, they are on their hobby horse, indeed.
Yeah, they are. They're on more ways than one.
I have a fantastic video of you riding a hobby horse. Believe it or not.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, that was at that's really fun. That's over at
Roundup Rodeo.
Woody's Roundup Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And if you want, they'll allow you to ride a hobby horse over to your table. I forgot. I wonder if they got rid of that. It's been a while since I've been there.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm definitely going to put it in the show so everybody can see you riding a hobby horse. So you're not jumping over any gates like this guy was.
No, if there was a gate, I would have cleared it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, not even a question.
All right. Well, that's a fun jaunt over to hobby horse land, especially the origin of the word hobby. That's fascinating. So,
I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, everyone's version of cool versus mine is probably different.
All right, let's keep going into this room. We're still over Michael's bed, and you can tell it's Michael's bed because it's got those little like guardrails on it for toddlers, so they don't roll out of bed and whatnot, which the other beds do not have. But up on the wall, we do see a cuckoo clock. Kirk's going to share a few things about clocks with us, but before he does, I just want to mention that we do have some cuckoo clock history in Fantasyland, in Disneyland. Here's what the clock looks like up close. But in Disneyland history, we used to have This is really, really obscure Disney history, okay, kids? This is not even in the like A to Z encyclopedia. You won't find this anywhere probably but here on Distory. Where Bippity Boppity Boutique's like back door is there, but to the left of Sleeping Beauty Castle, it was Geppetto's workshop. And they did sell clocks in there once upon a time. And I did have a photo of what it looked like inside the shop, but I have no idea where it went to. And this is so obscure, it's almost impossible to find. Like if you Google Geppetto's workshop, you're not finding this on the internet. This is extremely rare photo. So you can see there's just a little shield at the top of the door that says Geppetto's diagonally across it. And then it says workshop at the bottom. So they did sell those clocks back then. And this was 1958 when this photo was taken. And I don't think this shop was open very long. We would have heard more about it in history had it been a big thing for a long time. The other thing that opened up in 1983 with New Fantasyland was Geppetto's Arts and Crafts, which opened as part of the New Fantasyland expansion. The shop's architecture drew inspiration directly from the animated film for Geppetto's shop. They originally did sell clocks and whatnot, but in the 90s, they started selling mostly like plush toys and custom dolls. And then the mid-90s, the shop officially became Geppetto's Toys and Gifts. And then the shop did some like meet and greets and whatnot with princesses, but it officially closed in 2004. And then this was like a meet and greet spot for a while. And now I haven't seen it open in quite some time. It's just kind of closed. So if you're ever wondering what this little building is that's in Disneyland's Fantasyland, used to be a store once upon a time. But Kirk, do you want to tell us a little bit more about some cuckoo clocks?
I would love nothing more than to talk about cuckoo clocks.
Okay.
All right. So on the side of Michael's, whose bed is it?
Michael's bed, yeah.
Okay. I'm all over the map here. Is a cuckoo clock, which of course we know cuckoo clocks from my favorite, Pinocchio. We got to see lots. And I went through a bunch of the different cuckoo clocks in this scene particularly, and there was none that matched. I was like, man, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
If it was identical. But they are done in the style of a Bahnhosel or a railway house, which is a mechanical style cuckoo clock that was invented in the Black Forest or Schwarzwald region of southwestern Germany during the mid-1700s. The early versions were simple wooden shields with a clock dial and a small door for the bird. In the 1850s, though, the little house look started to take full form as architect Friedrich Eiselor entered the clock design competition and based his entry on the look of a standard railway guardhouse he was building at the time. He added a clock face and carved wooden leaves and the signature pine cone weights. This Bahnhosel style became the global sensation and is exactly what's depicted that we see in the Darling House. I was able to find a video of one of these exact same styles where the doors open up and you can see the bird pop out. So like
fun.
in the Peter Pan version on the ride, there's bluebirds that are affixed and they don't move. But the one on the center is supposed to open and close with the hour. So this gentleman is going to forward the clock and move it forward so that mechanical activation happens. Let me turn off the volume here. But you can see him. He actually turns
cute.
it so it's on every 15. The little birdie pops out. I think there's I never had I never had this style clock, but my grandmother had a grandfather clock, and there was something always fulfilling about the noises. If you couldn't hear them, I'm sorry. This is what it sounded like.
Woo! Like, cuckoo, cuckoo. It's like a cuckoo. It really must make a cuckoo sound. Yeah, that's fun.
It does. You know what's funny is while I was looking for just stuff about a Bahnhosel, because I was looking for like a specific guard house, but that's one that he specifically built, and there isn't a lot of photos from that. I just found this random German website for a restaurant, and I know this means welcome, but I thought this would be something fun for those that are watching along with us on the Disney Cicerone on YouTube. I'm going to translate this because I'm dying to know what it says. Welcome to the beautiful Pretzvins Valley, where Braunhosel is located. It was a former railway station and what is now the Boden district of the municipality of Großbuckerswald. The narrow gauge railway line from Wolkenstein to Gostad run here. So this, I mean, I don't know if this is similar to the style or whatever, because this is obviously not that ornate. What's their deal of the day, Kate? What do you think it is? I can't read any of this.
I saw bratwurst.
Oh, yo, Kate! Bratwurst!
Huzzah.
And schnitzel.
Currywurst.
And currywurst. Dude, currywurst is really good.
Yeah.
Nice.
I stayed in a 15th century castle one time in Germany.
Okay.
And this is a little side story real quick. So I stayed in this 15th century castle. Elliot was doing a piping festival he was teaching at or playing at or something. And it was a really creepy place to stay because it had been converted into like a hotel. And I was reading Northanger Abbey, if anybody knows what that is, Jane Austen book that does have some kind of like spooky things that go on in it. And so I'm reading this book and I'm like, maybe I'm like imagining things because all of a sudden I feel like really creeped out being in this room. And I was like by myself because Elliot was teaching or something. So I left and I went downstairs to go find some people. And I didn't think anything of it. But years later, I was watching like Ghost Hunters International. They definitely went to that castle and they definitely had like all kinds of activity. And I was like, maybe there was something to that.
Okay.
So, anyway.
So speaking of creepy things, can we talk about this photo for a second? The way this is angled, I thought that thing on the bottom of this had like two eyes and was like a gremlin looking at me, like a nose here, two eyes, and that was like a crazy ear.
Yeah.
But you just need to see it from a different angle. And on the base of the foot of the bed, it's actually doggy, just very similar to Nana.
Nana, yeah.
But it looks really weird in that picture. It looks like some sort of gremlin, but it's not. It's just a dog, the way it's angled.
Well, and you can also see in this photo, there's also a toy train that's on the floor. And then there's like a wagon that I think has like a stuffed bear in it that's on the left-hand side. It's very hard to find what's on the left-hand side because we're all looking right. It's all staged to the right-hand side in this room. So, but it does look like there's a little wagon down there. And then over the bed, there's also a map, which I was like, maybe it's like a Neverland map. Did you have thoughts about this map, Kirk?
All right, let's talk about the map.
Okay.
I have my best guess, but I do not have an exact replica stylistically of that same map. I have something similar and I have a good guess, but we got to kind of take some educated guesses here because it's not 100%.
Okay.
The first thing I thought of 100% was we should be looking at Neverland. If you look at the map that's in the Darling bedroom, it has some land masses in all four of the corners, and then there's a giant body of water, and then in the center is a central fixed island. So the first thought that Kate and I had is that's Neverland. But the shape of the island is not the same, particularly due to Cannibal Cove. Cannibal Cove is the southern part of Neverland Island, and it is completely carved out. And so that cove would need to be present, but it doesn't look like that in the Darling house. So then I'm like, okay, well, what other things came about similar time period? And the thing that I landed on is Treasure Island.
Treasure Island.
So
interesting.
Huh. So the reason why is because in the actual beginning of the story of Peter Pan, like in the actual novel, so in the 1911 Peter and Wendy, Captain Hook writes, the only man who barbecue feared was Captain Hook. Barbecue was a nickname for none other than Long John Silver. Time period wise, it's the only thing that I can think of that's like adventurous, similar shape. Now coloration, and it's obviously not the same map, but the shape of the island is very, very similar.
Yeah.
And you could imagine if they were reading similar novels, it's also a tie-in to the 1911 second Peter Pan novel. It's possible. Again, I am reaching here, but I think there is some plausible tie-ins that would make sense.
Yeah. Well, and they like reading pirate stories and pirate drama. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But it's interesting that Captain Hook is tied to Long John Silver in actual prose rather than just, that would be me totally guessing. But yeah, Captain Hook was the only person that Long John Silver was afraid of.
Huh.
I mean, technically in the story too, Flint is somebody that he's afraid of as well, in actual Treasure Island. So there's two people that he's scared of. But that's okay. You can be afraid of more than one thing. Life is hard. I get it.
I know I am. So just to the left of Michael's bed is a wash stand. It's a small table. It's a wash stand with a wash basin and pitcher in it. And this actually did move in the 2015 refurb. They moved it to the left of John's bed instead. So you'll find it in a different location today because they moved the scene around a little bit then. But originally in 1983, it was over near Michael's bed. And so a wash stand is not something we see often today. Wash basins and pitchers were used for personal washing before indoor plumbing that allowed people to clean their hands, face, and sometimes upper body using water poured from the pitcher into the basin. They became common household items in Europe and America from the 17th through the 19th centuries, especially in bedrooms where people washed in the morning and in the evening. The pitcher held clean water brought from a well or a pump, while the basin caught the used water so it could be carried away and discarded. These sets were often made of ceramic, porcelain, or stoneware, and wealthier households, which I think the Darling family clearly is, owned decorative matching sets that sat on washstands, like in this room. With the spread of indoor plumbing and running water in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, wash basins and pitchers sets gradually disappeared from everyday use, and that's why we don't have them today, because we just go wash our hands in the sink or take a shower. But
so boring.
Yeah, but this is your way of kind of, tidying up before bed. You'd wash your hands or whatnot in your washstand. And I imagine your servants would probably come in and take it away and refresh your water if you lived in a fancy house here. So, but I love that there's a little washstand in there. Then we get to John's bed. Now, this is from 1983 version before the refurb. The bed had a makeshift sail on the top of it. It's actually made from a broom because you can see the brush part of the broom that's upright if you zoom out a little bit. Michael started out having his eyes open, and then later on he has his eyes closed. So somewhere that they decided, like, he's drifting off to sleep, we're going to close his eyes. But he does have his little teddy bear there, which I think is really fun. Wendy, her dress actually did change over time ever so slightly. I think the color of it has changed, and the fabric that they used for it changed, because it used to be kind of more of a matte fabric, and then it became like more of a satin that was shinier. And the color changed. It used to be a little bit more like bright teal, and then they changed it to more of a blue, but it has a purple ribbon around the waist as well. And interestingly enough, Kirk, if you remember in that Imagineering document, it said she would be sitting in a rocking chair and reading to them. Now, in the 1971 version from Walt Disney World that we talked about before, she was reading to them in bed, but she was sitting on the bed and not a chair. Now, here she's not sitting on a rocking chair. She's just sitting on a stationary chair. And she's definitely not reading. So she might have been telling them stories or something, but she's not doing any reading. She's just kind of perched on the chair. And the other thing is, up on this wall here, we see this sconce. And these are around the room. There's a couple of them. This is a flower sconce on the wall. And I tried to find the exact one, but I came up empty. But it's a slag glass Tiffany style lamp that looks like a flower that's like upright, which is really pretty.
Yeah. They're very pretty.
They are. And they do different lighting too, depending on the year that you look at it. Sometimes they're brighter. And so it just depends on what time in history you're looking at, what that lighting actually looks like in that room. So the other things we see in 1983 that are still there, there's a little photo of Nana that's on the wall to the left of the bed. There's also a rolling horse toy that's in the corner as well. And there's some more blocks on the floor that spell Pan with a D on the top. Then this scene changes pretty dramatically in the 2015 refurb. So I have some Imagineering notes about this change. It says, the approach we took in balancing the original attraction, which is, of course, the 1983 New Fantasyland version everybody knows and loves, and It's a beloved attraction, so we're very respectful of that. We never put new technology in just for the sake of new technology. It has to support the storytelling, which I'm like, yes, I'll cheer. Yes. So that's Larry Nicolai, the creative director of Walt Disney Imagineering, back when they were doing these changes. But this is the concept art for the new changes. You can see that they are pulling from the 1955 version, was also in 1983. There was a shadow of Peter Pan that moved against the wall. They kept that in. They're like, let's lean into that. But instead of having the kids just sitting on the bed, let's have them actually fly through the air. So, and then add some pixie dust and whatnot. So what they did here was the darling children actually do have very limited animation. So they're not moving their limbs or anything, but they're kind of like moving up and down like they're floating. And then the bear spins around in a circle. And then there's a projection of Tinkerbell's pixie dust, which kind of flies over the wall, like she's sprinkling pixie dust on the children. And then the shadow for Peter Pan does actually move. So you can see it's down near the floor in this picture. And then it leaps up and he then flies out the window. And then we follow him out the window. So this is actually kind of creating movement in the scene.
Would you care to fly through and watch this animation in real time?
Yeah, let's watch it.
All right, it's going to happen fast, kids. Just keep your peepers peeping. He's very bouncy.
But here we're flying into the nursery, and we make that left-hand turn, and you can see them just kind of floating in the air, and then you're out the door. And the shadow, you can blink and you miss it. It's really hard to see. If the scene's like really brightly lit in there, it's really hard to see the shadow.
Yeah, he's very quick too. He like does like a spin move, and then he's completely out.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you just took us out the doors into the garden, because that's where we're headed next. Can you play that one more time just to show us into the garden?
One more time. Peter's got me feeling so free. I'm going to stop it right as soon as we hit the doors.
Yeah. So here we are out into the garden. So this is the layout from Parkler. You can see he says, come on, everybody, here we go. And you go out the window, and it's in this little kind of curved area that is a garden, because you can fly on this particular map. But I do have some things from the Imagineering work copy from 1981. So remember now, these are things that didn't necessarily come to pass because they changed it before 1983. So this is what it says. It says, for the story, Peter Pan invites one and all to follow him through an adventure in Neverland. The ride vehicles move through the open window and into the night sky. Far below, bound by a chain and collar to the ground, Nana, the family's pet Saint Bernard, is barking frantically. In the set description, it says the set diminishes in size to give the illusion that the ride vehicles are flying. Silhouettes of Wendy, John, and Michael circle around Nana, who's chained to her doghouse. So they put this picture in the work copy of the shadows that are flying around Nana, who's barking down below. In the show functions, it says the beginning of the journey to Neverland commences with the scene. Again, Neverland. They can never decide if it's going to be never or never, or it's never, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, they're going to have an audio animatronic of Nana barking with simple movement, and audio also with the theme music of Nana barking plus the theme music. I could not get a great picture of this, Kirk, because this goes by so fast. I actually have a picture of it after I had flown over it, looking backwards.
Okay.
But there's kind of like a half circle of wall with a gate in the middle. And then there is a doghouse, but there's no Nana in this scene. That is in the Walt Disney World version, but we see Nana from 1955 in the nursery. So it wouldn't make sense for us to see Nana and then have Nana barking down below, right? That makes no sense whatsoever. And they definitely got rid of the idea of having the silhouettes of the kids fly, or if they do, you don't see it at all because it's so dark in here. So there's no silhouettes, there's no Nana barking, there's none of that. So that only exists in the Walt Disney World version. It's not here in Disneyland. There is a doghouse, but Nana is inside comfortably hanging out with the children. The houses then get progressively smaller as we fly into London. And you note the props list for this area actually lists that they were going to have small, medium, and large cars like we did in Walt Disney World. But you'll notice in these pictures, there's no cars on the street at all. So here's the prop list. The large, medium, and small are kind of listed in the center there. And we just never got them. So they decided to do away with that for whatever reason, budget time, who knows, space. That's also a possibility. But anyway, we never got the cars. And then we get to, you can see these houses are really, really, really brightly colored. Then we see a mural on the wall of this like cityscape, and it includes St. Paul's Cathedral. This is actually what it looks like in the scene now. In 2015, they did add this projection of Tinkerbell flying around with her pixie dust into London. So there's St. Paul's Cathedral. And this was actually a medieval cathedral first, and then was rebuilt after the Great Fire of London in 1666. The current cathedral was designed by Christopher Wren and constructed between 1675 and 1710. This is actually went there. So this is my photo of St. Paul's Cathedral. Its massive dome became one of London's most recognizable landmarks and was the tallest building in the city for over 250 years. During the Blitz in World War II, photographs of the cathedral standing amidst smoke and destruction became a powerful symbol of British resilience, which is what you can see here. And it's also been the site of many major national ceremonies, including the wedding of Charles and Diana and the funeral of Winston Churchill. And then there's some other cathedrals and things that are in this. Do you have any other information about the buildings that are in here, Kirk?
So, okay, ready? You want to get like super fancy pants?
Yeah.
You had asked me specifically, hey, can you find whatever this building is on the right-hand side with the two towers adjacently? Now, the negative here, and we have to suspend our belief systems on reality and the fact that there's a bunch of trees that are disconnecting the St. Paul's Cathedral. But I think that it's the same, it's still part of St. Paul's Cathedral because of the location. But if you look, check this out. Woo, this is London town.
Fancy.
Ready? So if you're looking at just the dome side of things, right? It looks like, okay, there's only the dome. But if we go around.
Yeah.
There's two towers. Right there. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it's just, the illustration is just incorrect because there's nothing else that's similar, that's close. When I looked at the skyline, this is how nerdy I am. I literally went around London using trees because I figured that building probably would still exist if it was real.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to go with it's just a continuation because they do have two towers that look very, very similar to
I think you're
painting.
right. It's just trees obscuring
I just think that they
whatever.
illustrated it incorrectly and disconnected them, where it shouldn't be a separate building. It should just be a continuation of the cathedral itself based on the way it looks. I don't know. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, it's got trees and everything similarly to it. So
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's just part of St. Paul's, but because of the trees, it makes it look like two different buildings. So we also see more buildings that are just getting progressively smaller and smaller, just like the Walt Disney World version. And you can also see them here. Just some more pictures of what they look like. Then they're painted really in bright blues and purples, so they would show up really well with that black light as being buildings. But interestingly enough, if you look at these ones in particular, the front side is all painted just like this, but the back side of them is actually painted like matte black, so you can't see it from London. Which I think
matte black.
Yeah. So you can't actually see it in there, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. So here's the front side and here's the back side. And that's pretty much all she wrote. I think that's where we have to roll this episode to a stop today because we have way too much information about London Town to be able to dive into it, and we're just sadly out of time. But we will cover, next time we'll dive into London Town and at least Neverland, if not a little bit farther. We'll see how far we get. But we hoped you enjoyed this episode of Distory. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
I hope you guys are practicing and having fun finding new little horses in your lives.
Get on your hobby
or
horses,
Hobins.
kids.
Your little Hobins.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Distory.